What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 166. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where all we do is discuss and talk about new movies that come out in theaters or in streaming. We'll give some high-level, non-spoiler thoughts at the beginning of the podcast, and then we'll dive into some spoilers, say what we liked and we didn't like, and then we'll wrap it all up and decide, after watching this movie once, is it timeless? Is it something that we can rewatch various different times in the future? And could this movie potentially become one of my favorites of all time? It sounds ridiculous. Why would I do that? Well, it's fun. I like to talk about movies and I like to voice my opinion. But if you guys that are listening want to voice your opinions and let me know your thoughts about some of the movies that we discuss, well, hey, follow us on socials. I'm on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. On all of those platforms, you can search up Timeless Movie Podcast, all one word, and you can always send me a message. Let me know your opinions and thoughts of any recent movies that you got to check out. And then also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Wherever you get your podcasts, follow and subscribe, leave some comments, share with friends. Would love for you guys to share with other people that like movies, and that way they can comment and let me know that maybe I'm ridiculous with all the opinions that I come up with, or maybe my opinions are too basic. Whatever it might be, just feel free to share that with all the friends that love movies as well. Now, speaking of prior episodes and prior movies that we've talked about, episode 165 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on all the platforms that I mentioned before. I ended up talking with my brother Omar about one of our most highly anticipated movies, and it was Wicked for Good, the sequel and the end of the Wicked series. It actually started in 2024, and the year after, we got the second part. So go listen to episode 165 and let me know in the comments, do you agree or disagree with me and my brother's opinions about that film? Okay, enough of the housekeeping items. Let us jump in to this week's movie, in which we are talking about Rian Johnson's newest film, Wake Up Dead Man, part of the Knives Out series. Couple of reasons why I wanted to watch this one. I became a huge fan of the Knives Out universe or mystery series in 2019 when I saw the first Knives Out. I went in with a couple of friends, didn't have any expectations at all, and I left the theater just shocked at how much I enjoyed this movie. It was such a fun and unique take on the murder mystery genre. It had great ensemble cast, and it was just such a fun time in the theater, and it ended up becoming one of my timeless movies. And so that really pumped me up, and then it got me even more excited to find out that Rian Johnson was actually going to be writing or directing even more Knives Out series, and it makes sense. You could just follow Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, follow different types of cases and mysteries, and enjoy all of the stories that unfold. And so in 2022, I ended up watching Glass Onion, the follow-up to Knives Out, and I enjoyed it. I liked the cast. I like what the story that was told, but it just didn't reach up to that level of Knives Out. And so it kind of got me a little worried as to, will any other type of story in this Knives Out universe, will it ever reach the heights of the first one? Was the first one just so new and so different that now it just kind of feels like a copy? Well, let's find out, because we got to go check out Wake Up Dead Man in theaters. It is going to come out to Netflix, but there's actually a quick theatrical run right now. And so I got to check it out on Tuesday, November 25th. And so let's go ahead now and move over into the non-spoiler section. That way I can give a little bit more details about this movie. Okay, Wake Up Dead Man is directed by Rian Johnson. If you are not aware, Rian Johnson has directed films like Looper, the now infamous Star Wars The Last Jedi, and then he has also directed Knives Out and Glass Onion, as well as a couple of other TV shows and episodes as well. Rian Johnson has a really unique knack to be able to really turn these different types of genres, these types of story structures, turn them on its head and just really give a different type of a perspective. He did it for Star Wars, he did it for Knives Out and for the murder mystery genre. And so, again, it's something that's very interesting how he's able to kind of misdirect the audience with different types of ways to set up the story. And not only does he do that in Wake Up Dead Man, but he actually has a great cast as well that helps him with those misdirections. Apart from Daniel Craig, you have actors like Kaylee Spaney, Andrew Scott, Mila Kunis, Jeremy Renner, Thomas Hayden Church, Glenn Close, Kerry Washington, Josh Brolin, Josh O'Connor, Jeffrey Wright. That's just to name the main cast of characters that come out. Really, that's essentially the entire ensemble that comes out in this film. But you have a long list of actors that appear. And that's one of my favorite aspects of the Knives Out series is just every movie is a different set of cast members that join and play off of the energy of Daniel Craig. But the important question is, what the heck is Wake Up Dead Man about? Well, let me tell you. Wake Up Dead Man is essentially, as you would expect, a murder mystery. This time, you're in a little town, I believe in New York, and you're at a little church, and you're finding out that the priest of that specific church, name is Monsignor Wicks, played by Josh Brolin, has been murdered. And now Benoit Blanc has been assigned to the task, and now he has the puzzle in front of him. How do I figure out who murdered Monsignor Wicks? The tough thing and the tricky thing about this one is that he actually got murdered in a little small section between his sermon and a little break. And so there's not a lot of time. And so he gets off of stage from doing the sermon and then he ends up dead on the floor. So now Benoit Blanc has to investigate all of Monsignor's followers in the church and try to figure out which one of these followers is the murderer. That's all I'm going to say because I do want it to be very much a surprise and a cool experience. So now that I got to check it out, what did I think about Wake Up Dead Man? Well, I left the theaters thinking that this movie was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed this experience. Again, I've already gotten to get the feel of Rian Johnson in these Knives Out films, but even after seeing the last two films, it's so crazy that I'm still able to get bamboozled. I'm still able to be surprised by the twists and turns. And so I really enjoyed this movie. The performances were awesome. There's a lot of great laughs in the movie. And again, the twists and turns, the way that this story is kind of set up and how it's just bringing you in and immersing you into what's going on, where it makes you second guess if you can trust a couple of people and a couple of characters in this movie. I just loved it. It's such a great type of an experience. And again, at least for me, I'm the type of audience member that loves to guess, loves to figure out who the murderer is. Can I figure it out? My success rate is pretty much 0%. So take my word for it. I suck at guessing who the murderer is going to be in a mystery film like this. Maybe I don't do enough investigating, but what we can do is let's investigate a little bit more as to what I liked and didn't like about Wake Up Dead Man. That way you guys have a little bit more context. So let's go ahead and move over to some of the good things as well. Okay, first pro that I have for Wake Up Dead Man, this will be kind of a long one, but it's really, in essence, the cinematography and the camera that they leveraged and used in different types of shots in this film. First off, I'll start with the cinematography. This film just looks so good. I mean, they're able to capture this little town, predominantly only one setting. They set this story at a little church, and you have Father Judd, who is played by Josh O'Connor. You have Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, and the rest of the characters just roaming around, going back and forth to different places in this little town. And everything just looks so cool. There's some really nice shots that could really just be the poster of the film. I really enjoyed, again, how they were able to set up a lot of these different types of camera angles and the way they would capture some characters having dialogue. I really thought that was clever, how they were able to pull that off. And then specifically about the camera itself, there was these really cool movements that it would do. It would zoom in and zoom out in different areas of wherever certain characters were. So let me describe a couple of examples. There was times where Father Judd was talking to a couple of other characters, and the camera would start off very far away. And you have Father Judd talking to Samson, who is played by Thomas Hayden Church, and they would be, talking very far away, and the camera would just continuously zoom and zoom and zoom and zoom and zoom until it got really close into Samson's face or near his face as well. And so it was really cool how they were kind of forcing you into that perspective, making sure that you as an audience member were picking up those details. What are they saying in the dialogue? Because in these murder mystery films, every piece of dialogue, every conversation might give a little crumb as to who the murderer might be. Then there was also shots that were opposite. There was times where the camera was really close up on two characters, like Josh Brolin's character maybe talking to Kaylee Spaney, and it looked like that was the focus, but then the camera slowly zooms out, and actually the perspective is from Andrew Scott's character's perspective. And so he was actually the one looking at Father Monsignor Wicks, and he was looking at, well, why is he talking to Kaylee Spaney's character? What's going on here? And so just the way that they were able to utilize the camera to force a specific perspective or trick you into thinking that, hey, I'm showing you this, I'm showing you Monsignor Wicks, but in reality, it's somebody else watching him. And so I really dig when the film and movies just do those kind of little tricks. It's very simple, it's very subtle, but I really like that because it differentiates itself from not only other Knives Out movies, but even other films that I've watched this year. So really like the camera work as well as how beautiful this film looked and the cinematography of it. Okay, second pro for me is going to be a very easy one, but I still want to call it out, and it's the performances of some of the characters in this film. I got to call out Josh O'Connor, Kerry Washington, and Josh Brolin. I still really liked everybody else, but I just want to call out those three. Josh O'Connor just did such a great job as Father Judd. He was really a central part of this story. He actually worked and tag teamed a lot with Benoit Blanc, and then just really tried to figure out like and making sure that he was helping and assisting as much as he could in regards to finding out who killed Monsignor Wicks. And then speaking of Monsignor Wicks, played by Josh Brolin, I mean, Josh Brolin has such charisma. He has such energy. And so it totally makes sense that it's believable that he could be a father or a priest. He could be somebody that would be commanding and you could grab your attention with everything that he is saying. And so everything that he did as that character was just awesome. And he was a very wicked man. And I'll kind of go into that in the spoiler section. And then Kerry Washington also played a really great character. She was a very loyal person, but you could see some of the emotions, like how they're slipping out of her because she just can't take it anymore. She can't take everything that has really led her to the situation of, being a good person, but it hasn't led her to anything good in her life. And so those performances, again, were really top notch. But I do want to call out that everybody else, Mila Kunis, Andrew Scott, Kaylee Spaney, Jeremy Renner, Glenn Close, everybody else also, the timing of their specific lines or the delivery and how they would say certain things, it led to so many funny moments. And that's one of the things, again, Rian Johnson just delivers on this film is not only does he try to bamboozle you, does he try to trick you and misdirect you in regards to where this murder mystery is going, but there's always going to be a good laugh in it. There's always going to be these moments that, there might be a lot of tension, but then eventually kind of releases it with a funny joke, a funny situation. And so there was plenty of that in this movie. And so it's just, again, a great time as you're trying yourself to figure out who the heck is the murderer, but also there's just some funny aspects that happen in this movie. So that's going to be my big second pro is essentially the performances, which led to some hilarious scenes in the movie. Okay, let's move on to some things that I didn't like as much. Really, it's just one thing, and that's even though the movie runtime was 2 hours and 20 minutes, it actually did feel a little bit longer. There was certain moments that just kind of felt like they were stretched out a lot. And there's also a lot of exposition. And it makes sense, right? You're in a murder mystery. You're trying to capture a lot of the detail and the context as to, well, who could be a person of interest? What could the motive and the means be? Where's the opportunity? And so you have to have a lot of characters talking through a lot of scenes. You go through a couple of flashbacks to explain or expand a little bit more about why this character is the way they are. And so, the exposition is going to be very important, but it's a double-edged sword because if you have too much of it, it does make it feel like you're just listening and waiting for something to happen. And so I did feel that throughout the movie. And it didn't happen consistently, but there were several moments that just felt like they were very long and just very stretched out. So That's again the only thing that I can call out. I kind of wish that maybe could have cut some things just to make it the pace feel even quicker. But that's really my only negative is that it does feel a little long. Okay, let's now move into should you guys check this one out in theaters or in the case of Wake Up Dead Man on Netflix? In my personal opinion, even though the movie does feel a little long, it could have some scenes that are just extended a little bit more than they should be. My recommendation is check this movie out. You actually don't even need to check out Knives Out or Glass Onion because every movie is independent of each other. The only character you need to know is Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc. That's all you need to know. Other than that, it's another murder mystery. You're just seeing somebody in their element. You're seeing Benoit Blanc figure things out. And why not just find out if you can solve a murder mystery and have some good laughs with some great performances as well? So that's going to be my personal recommendation. Give this one a watch. If you have a chance, if there's a local theater near you that's showing it in theaters, watch it in theaters. Support local theaters. I think it's always a better experience than watching it at home. But again, if you're not able to watch it at a theater, then obviously wait for it on streaming on Netflix. All right, those are all of my non spoiler thoughts about Wake Up Dead Man. Now it is time to dig in even deeper. Let's start spoiling some stuff. Let's start figuring out what we really liked and didn't like in order to come to the conclusion, is Wake Up Dead Man timeless? But before we get there, please, if you don't want to be spoiled, jump out of the video now, jump out of the podcast, watch the movie, then come back. And that way, in the comments, you can either agree or disagree with me about Wake Up Dead Man. And of course, let me know your opinions. I want to know what your guys' honest thoughts are about this movie. Okay, hopefully I gave everybody enough time to jump out of the video because spoilers are coming now. But first, we got to answer this question, this important question of the podcast. Is Wake Up Dead Man timeless? Is it something that I can see myself rewatching in the future? I'm not going to lie. I spent a lot of time and just in my own mind trying to think, what is the answer to this question? Do I think I can rewatch this movie? Is this timeless? And as of today, I'm going to say that this movie is timeless, just barely making it cross the finish line to be timeless. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next year, I might decide that, you know what? No, I changed my mind. This isn't a timeless movie. But as of today, November 26th, I'm going to say that this is a movie that I would want to rewatch. Now, if you were to ask me, well, Victor, is this the best Knives Out movie you've seen? No way. I still consider the first Knives Out in 2019 the best movie of the series. But this one is really good. I actually like it better than Glass Onion. Now, let me explain some of the reasons why I think this movie is timeless. First reason is that I think one of the bigger aspects of why I connected to it so much is that the perspective of this film is actually anchored by not Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc, but it's actually Josh O'Connor's character of Father Judd. The film actually starts with Father Judd and starting from his perspective, and you actually get a chance to connect with him. You get to see what his life is like as a father, what he's trying to do, how he's trying to help in regards to Monsignor Wick's own church and how he wants to really improve it. And so that to me was a very smart decision. And that's something that I noticed in Glass Onion. In Glass Onion, there was the perspective from Janelle Monáe's character, but I felt like it focused way too much on Benoit Blanc. And again, I don't think it just allowed it to really breathe with the character that it should have been focused on. And so I think I came to the conclusion that I actually feel like these Knives Out movies should be anchored by a different character that is not Benoit Blanc. Even though, yes, he is the prominent detective, he is the one that's going to solve this mystery and the puzzle, and he's going to bring everything together. But he actually should not be the main character. He should just be a side character. He should pop in, pop out, and just make these funny little monologues and do all this stuff. But the focus should always be on a main character. And that's why I think the first Knives Out worked so well for me, because Ana de Armas was the main character of that one. She was the main focus. You were seeing her struggle with what had just happened to her and her patient. And so, again, going back to Wake Up Dead Man, Josh O'Connor, I thought, did an excellent job. And I think he was actually my favorite performance. He just put up this great character of Father Judd where you just believed that he was a good person. You believed that he wanted to do things for the better. And you would see him when he would talk to Benoit Blanc and explain, because in the movie, he actually gets framed. He gets framed for the murder of Monsignor Wicks. And so everybody thinks that he's the one that did it. And as soon as Benoit Blanc interviews him, he immediately knows, no, well, Father Judd, I know you didn't do it. And just the way that he describes his past, how he wants to repent for his sins for what he did when he was a boxer before he was a father. And so that whole concept of just getting Father Judd be the anchor of this movie just, to me, worked wonders and made me connect with the movie even more rather than just kind of always having the focus be on Benoit Blanc. He's a great character, but I think I like him more in specific moments and having him be a side character and not having him be the full focus of the movie. Second reason why I think this movie is timeless for me is the twists and turns in this movie are just, man, to me, they were incredible because of the fact that they really got me. There was a moment where Benoit Blanc, at first, he seems like he trusts Father Judd, and then he kind of has a moment of, you know what? Let me dig a little bit deeper. Let me get into your brain. And how about this, Father Judd? Write me the entire story from beginning to end of what you experienced since you've been here at the church. And then he ends up putting a specific line, and then you immediately see Benoit Blanc note this line of a sentence that he put, and then he immediately questions him. Well, hey, I think you're lying. You're not telling me the truth. And for a second, that twist almost made me believe, holy crap, is Father Judd actually the murderer? Did the first 20 minutes just convince me that, or bamboozle me that he was a nice guy, but in reality he wasn't? And so that twist almost got me, but again, at the end, Father Judd actually did not murder Monsignor Wicks, but it almost got me. And again, those are the kind of twists that I love when it makes me doubt a character that I thought I could trust. And that when a movie can do that, specifically in a murder mystery, I think that's when you just have the audience right in the palm of your hands. And they had me. There was a couple of other moments that happened that also were just really great twists. There was a moment where Monsignor Wicks, you start seeing flashbacks as Benoit Blanc starts interviewing more of the other followers. And then you find out that Monsignor Wicks actually wanted to become rich because he found out that he has a fortune that he can inherit from his father. And so when you find that out, now knowing that he died, is like, oh, did he try to fake his own death? Was he trying to find a way to figure out where he could find this fortune or this inheritance? And then it started making me question, like, well, could it be Josh Brolin's Monsignor Wicks? Because at one point in the movie, you see his dead body, and then in the third act, he actually rises from his actual tomb and he escapes from whatever, he was in a little specific stone tomb, and he was able to escape. Like he woke up like if he was Jesus. And so that almost had me too. I was doubting myself. I'm like, no way. Did he fake his own death? Was he just faking it and really putting the blame on Father Judd just so he can escape with the millions of dollars of inheritance? But then at the end of the story, it was not Monsignor Wicks just faking his own death. He was actually killed, and it was actually Glenn Close. And so it was just, it's a roller coaster. I was just taken down so many different paths, so many different areas and misdirections. Now, at one point, I was talking to my brother, and he was like, yeah, I really like the twists and turns, but I could see that this could be like a very overcomplicated. And when he said that, I was like, oh, you know what? I could totally see that. That's a fair criticism. There's so many misdirections and a moment that you thought it was going to zig and instead it zags. And it could definitely confuse audience members. And at one point, again, I was confused. I was like, no, wait, hold on. Wait, I thought this person was dead. Hold on. He's not dead. He rose. He woke up and he was in a tomb. And so there's definitely moments where I feel like the story could get very convoluted just to confuse the audience in order to not figure out who's the murderer. I can definitely see that. But to me, I still enjoyed it. I still like that aspect of being tricked, being like taken down a path and thinking that, yes, it can't be Father Judd. Wait, can it? Maybe is he the murderer? And so all that kind of stuff, all that kind of thinking and guessing and second guessing are things that I really appreciated about the movie. But to each their own. Maybe you might not enjoy that same kind of a feeling of being misdirected. So if you don't agree with me, let me know in the comments. All right, third pro, I'll make this one quick, but the cinematography, I mentioned this as one of my pros, but man, this movie really looked just, it looked incredible. The way that it was just filmed, again, the camera movements, but there's also some really cool shots. There's this one moment where you have Father Judd walking through the rain, through the forest. He is in disbelief because he just is tired of having to go through this game of finding out who is the murderer. He just wants to go back to being a priest, to helping people and showing people that they can believe in Christ. And so he's walking through the forest and he's just holding his arms because he's cold. And there's a scene where he just immediately stops and he sees somebody very far away with a raincoat and a lamp. And then it looks back at Father Judd and then he's just standing in the rain and the rain's just falling and he's just looking and staring. And it was just like, I guess symmetrically, the shot was just perfect. It just, he was right in the center of it. And there was a couple of other shots that were just, very perfectly centered as well. There was another shot where you have Benoit Blanc and Father Judd talking to each other in the forest. And there's this beautiful look at like a pathway within the forest. And the pathway is right in between the two characters of Benoit Blanc and Father Judd, and they're just having an intense conversation. And then you see that same guy in a raincoat walking right in between them in that path, very far away. Another beautiful shot. So a lot of great things to like look at that really captivated me as I was watching this movie. So that's another thing that I wanted to call out. And then the last item that I wanted to mention about why I think this movie's timeless is there was a couple of really well done horror scenes. I really liked what Rian Johnson and the team were able to pull off. There's this one flashback where they're explaining the father, the former priest of the church, who was the father of Monsignor Wicks. His name was Prentice, and so he ended up hiding some type of fortune and inheritance. And he had a daughter that all she wanted was to find out that inheritance. And so they start showing these scenes where this daughter goes crazy, almost like she's possessed. And she goes into the church and she starts destroying things there. She pushes a bunch of different types of statues of Jesus. She takes off the cross and throws it on the ground. She breaks so much stuff. And you just see her on the floor, just in a rage, and it just felt like something from a horror movie. I loved that touch, and I actually felt like there should be more of that. Especially because you're dealing with a movie about faith and a religion. You're in a church for the entire movie, and so those elements of possession and this fit of rage by this character, I don't know. To me, that was such a cool touch to show off the horror, which also makes me interested in if Rian Johnson will ever make a horror movie too. But that's one thing that I wanted to call out. Probably one of my favorite scenes is just that horror element that they were able to use in a flashback that just, it kind of caught me off guard because I hadn't seen that for a Knives Out film, but really thought it was clever to kind of include that to show off that, hey, look, is this person possessed? Are they just crazy? Like, what's going on in this little church? But I thought that was a really cool aspect. All right, guys, those are all of my thoughts in regards to Knives Out. Again, I rambled a lot, but hopefully what I explained are really kind of clear reasons why I enjoyed the movie. Again, it's not perfect. I did feel like it was long, could be too many twists and turns, but for the time being, how I feel about it, I had a great time. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was hilarious. Just a lot of good stuff. But who cares about what I think? What do you all think about Knives Out and specifically Wake Up Dead Man? I want to hear from all of you. So please voice your opinions, leave a comment, send me an email, message me on any of the socials that I mentioned before. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and just let me know. Hey, like maybe I'm maybe being too hyperbolic. Maybe this movie isn't that good. I just want to hear different perspectives. Would love to interact with you guys and talk more about this film. All right, everybody. Appreciate all of you that stuck with me all the way through and listened to my full thoughts about Wake Up, Dead Man. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 166 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new movie and we decide, after watching it once, is it timeless? All right, everybody. Appreciate you all. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate, and I'll talk to you guys next time.